Zara Collins nearly dropped her phone when the email notification chimed. Vitalia Events retirement party contract confirmed. Her small event planning business had just landed its biggest client yet, and her hands trembled as she reread the message from Margaret Richards, a retiring executive whose celebration would require every ounce of Zara's creativity and professional skill. "We did it, Mia." Zara spun around in her cramped office chair to high-five her assistant. "The Richards account is officially ours." "That's the pharmaceutical company executive, right? The one with the insane budget." Mia's eyes widened. "This could put us on the map." "Exactly, Mrs. Richards wants the works venue, catering, entertainment, decorations. She mentioned her son is helping finance it, but she'll be our primary contact." Zara scrolled through the contract details. 3 months to plan the perfect retirement celebration for a woman who spent 40 years revolutionizing medical research. What Zara didn't know as she began organizing her project timeline was that Margaret's son had plans extending far beyond his mother's retirement party. Plans that included the petite event planner he'd yet to meet. 2 days later, Zara arrived at Margaret Richards' elegant brownstone in Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood, portfolio tucked under her arm. The spring breeze tousled her dark hair as she climbed the steps and rang the doorbell. She'd researched Margaret extensively, 65 years old, pioneering female pharmaceutical researcher, widow of 15 years, with groundbreaking patents to her name. The door swung open, but instead of the older woman Zara expected, she found herself looking up at a tall man with piercing blue eyes and broad shoulders beneath a tailored shirt. "You must be Zara Collins." His voice was deep, his smile warm. "I'm Blake Richards. Mom's running late from a doctor's appointment, but she asked me to get you settled. Please come in." Zara extended her hand professionally, though she couldn't help noticing how completely her smaller hand disappeared into his. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Richards. I'm looking forward to working with your mother on her celebration. Please, it's Blake." He led her into a sunlit sitting room. "Mom's really excited about this. She's always been all about the work, never the recognition. Getting her to agree to a retirement party was a minor miracle." Zara smiled, setting her portfolio on the coffee table. "That's exactly why these celebrations matter. People who dedicate their lives to helping others deserve to be honored properly." Blake studied her with interest. "That's precisely what I told her. She finally agreed when I said it wasn't just about her, it's for all the colleagues and lives she's touched over 4 decades. Your mother sounds remarkable." "She is." Blake's expression softened. "Coffee, tea, Mom will be here soon." "Coffee would be wonderful, thank you." As Blake disappeared into the kitchen, Zara took in her surroundings. The home was tastefully decorated with mementos from around the world, framed scientific journals featuring Margaret's research, and family photos. She spotted a younger Margaret with a teenage boy she assumed was Blake, both smiling atop a mountain somewhere. Blake returned with 2 steaming mugs. "So, Vitalia Events, I checked out your website. Impressive portfolio for a newer company." "Thank you. I started small after leaving corporate event planning. I wanted to create more personalized experiences." Zara accepted the coffee gratefully. "This party for your mother will be our largest project yet." "Why did you leave corporate?" Blake asked, settling into the chair across from her. "I was organizing massive pharmaceutical conferences." Zara laughed at the coincidence. "The irony of meeting your mother isn't lost on me. I coordinated events where people like her were the keynote speakers, but everything felt impersonal, just logistics and schedules. I wanted to create meaningful celebrations that people would remember." Blake nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly what Mom deserves, something meaningful, not just elaborate." The front door opened, and Margaret Richards bustled in, an energetic woman with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes that immediately reminded Zara of Blake's. "Miss Collins, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. My doctor believes in thorough checkups." Margaret extended both hands to grasp Zara's. "I see you've met my overprotective son." Blake rolled his eyes good-naturedly. I prefer appropriately concerned, Mom. Blake insists on attending all my medical appointments lately, as if I haven't been managing my own health care for decades. Margaret settled onto the sofa. Now, let's talk about this party. I want something elegant but not ostentatious. My colleagues aren't impressed by extravagance, they're scientists, after all. For the next hour, Zara took notes as Margaret described her vision. Blake occasionally interjected with suggestions, his business acumen evident. Zara learned that Margaret had revolutionized several treatments for autoimmune diseases, and that her retirement party would host nearly 200 guests from around the scientific community. Blake will handle the financial aspects, Margaret explained. He insists on paying for everything, though I've told him it's unnecessary. Mom, you've spent your life helping others. Let me do this for you, Blake said firmly. Zara glanced between them, sensing the deep affection beneath their banter. Mrs. Richards, would it be helpful if I coordinate budget details directly with Blake? That way you can focus on the elements that matter most to you. Perfect solution, Margaret beamed. Blake's always handling money anyway. That's what happens when your son becomes a ridiculously successful investment banker before 40. Blake looked slightly embarrassed. Mom, what false modesty doesn't suit you, dear? Margaret turned to Zara. He started his own investment firm after leaving Goldman Sachs. Now he manages billions and works too much. I manage just fine, Blake countered, then addressed Zara. We should exchange contact information. I'm traveling next week, but I'd like to discuss venue options before I leave. As they exchanged phone numbers, Zara felt a flicker of unexpected chemistry. She quickly refocused on her notes, reminding herself this was strictly professional. Blake Richards was a client, a very wealthy, very attractive client. Over the next 2 weeks, Zara found herself in frequent communication with Blake. They toured potential venues together while Margaret was busy wrapping up her research projects. At each location, Blake proved surprisingly knowledgeable about event planning. The lighting here won't work, he noted at one historic library. Mom will want people to mingle, not squint at each other in dark corners. Zara raised an eyebrow. I'm impressed. Most clients don't notice lighting issues. I've attended enough corporate functions to know what works. Blake guided her through the space with a light hand at her back. What do you think about the Museum of Science? It seems fitting for Mom's career. I actually have an appointment there tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Zara said, consulting her calendar. Would you like to join? I'll rearrange my schedule. The museum proved perfect, a stunning atrium with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Charles River. As they discussed layout possibilities, Zara found herself enjoying Blake's company more than was strictly professional. So the main display tables here, she indicated, with cocktail tables scattered throughout for mingling. We could project images of your mother's career achievements on that wall. She'd hate that, Blake laughed. She's never wanted the spotlight. True, Zara mused. What about something more subtle? Timeline displays of her research advancements, but integrated with world events, contextualizing her work within history. Blake's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. Shows the impact without making her the center of attention. Exactly. It honors her work while respecting her modesty. You really understand what this means to her, Blake said softly. Their eyes met for a long moment before Zara looked away, suddenly flustered. That's my job, understanding what clients want, even when they don't explicitly say it. Later that evening, Blake called unexpectedly. Are you free for dinner tomorrow to discuss the catering options? He added quickly. Zara hesitated. I usually email menu suggestions. I know, but Mom has specific dietary preferences she's too polite to mention. Plus, there's a restaurant I think you should try. Their executive chef might be perfect for the event. It sounded reasonable enough. All right, text me the details. The restaurant, an exclusive farm-to-table establishment overlooking Boston Harbor, was clearly not just a venue research expedition. Blake had reserved a quiet corner table with spectacular views of the sunset. When Zara arrived, he stood to greet her, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit. "This seems a bit fancy for a business meeting," Zara commented, settling into her chair. Blake smiled. "The chef here is amazing. I thought you should experience the food firsthand before considering him for the event." Their conversation flowed naturally from party planning to personal stories. Blake described growing up with a mother dedicated to scientific research, traveling to conferences around the world, and developing his own passion for finance. Zara shared her journey from small-town Pennsylvania to Boston University and eventually launching her own business. "It must have been scary leaving a stable corporate job," Blake remarked. "Terrifying," Zara admitted, "but I saved for 3 years to build a safety net. My father always taught me to calculate risks before taking them." "Smart man." "He was," Zara said quietly. "He passed away 5 years ago." "Cancer?" Blake's hand moved toward hers before he seemed to think better of it. "I'm sorry. My dad died when I was 22. Heart attack." The shared experience of loss created an unexpected intimacy between them. By dessert, Zara realized they'd barely discussed the retirement party. "We should probably get back to business," she said reluctantly. "About your mother's dietary preferences," Blake looked sheepish. "Actually, she doesn't have any. That was an excuse to see you outside of venue tours." Zara should have been annoyed at the pretense, but found herself fighting a smile instead. "Mr. Richards, are you saying this was a personal dinner invitation disguised as a business meeting?" "Guilty," he admitted. "Though the chef really is excellent, would you consider him for the event?" "The food was spectacular," she conceded. "But Blake, I'm working for your family. It's not appropriate to mix business and whatever this is." "What if I promise to be entirely professional until after Mom's party?" His blue eyes held hers. 2 more months. "Then maybe we could have dinner again, no pretenses." Zara knew she should refuse. Office romances were complicated enough, client relationships were absolutely off-limits, yet something about Blake's straightforwardness appealed to her. 2 months. "Professional relationship only until then," she agreed. "And if you're still interested afterward, we'll see." Blake's smile was worth the risk. True to his word, Blake maintained professional boundaries during their subsequent meetings, though Zara often caught him watching her with undisguised interest. Their text exchanges about party details sometimes extended into the evening, gradually including personal anecdotes and questions that had little to do with centerpieces or playlists. One afternoon, while reviewing flower arrangements at Margaret's home, the older woman fixed Zara with a knowing look. "Blake mentions you quite often," Margaret said casually. Zara busied herself with the sample bouquets. "We've been coordinating many details together." "Indeed." "He's never shown such interest in party planning before." Margaret's eyes twinkled. "He's a good man, you know, workaholic like his mother, unfortunately, but he has a kind heart." "Mrs. Richards, Margaret, please." "Margaret, I want to assure you my priority is creating the perfect celebration for you. Friendship with Blake is secondary to that." The older woman patted Zara's hand. "Dear, I raised a son who recognizes quality when he sees it in investments and in people. I'd be delighted if planning my retirement led to something wonderful for him." Zara felt her cheeks warm. "We're just working together for now." "Of course," Margaret smiled. "Now about these hydrangeas." 6 weeks before the event, disaster struck. The museum called to inform Zara that a water pipe had burst, causing significant damage to the atrium. Repairs wouldn't be completed in time for Margaret's party. Panicked, Zara called Blake immediately. "We need a new venue. Everything was perfect and now, take a breath," Blake said calmly. "We'll figure this out. Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" Blake's office turned out to be the top floor of a gleaming financial district skyscraper with Richards Capital emblazoned on the glass doors. His assistant ushered Zara directly into a conference room where Blake was already reviewing something on his tablet. "I might have a solution," he said without preamble. "What do you think about Gardner Manor?" Zara's eyes widened. The historic estate on the North Shore. It's impossible to book on short notice. They're reserved years in advance for weddings. Blake smiled. The owner owes me a favor, a significant favor. I've already called. They had a cancellation and can accommodate us. That's incredible. But the cost, not your concern, Blake interrupted gently. Remember, no budget constraints. Mom deserves the best. Zara studied him. Blake, Gardner Manor costs more than double our original venue. I know you're successful, but this is Zara. Something in his tone made her stop mid-sentence. Money really isn't an issue. My firm manages over $4 billion in assets. I can afford to give my mother the retirement party she deserves. The casual mention of billions momentarily stunned her. Zara knew he was successful but hadn't grasped the scale of his wealth. Oh, she said inadequately. Well, Gardner Manor would be perfect then. Blake laughed at her expression. Does it make you uncomfortable knowing about the money? Zara considered the question. Not uncomfortable exactly. It just makes you more attractive, he suggested with a teasing smile. Intimidating, she corrected, returning his smile. Though your ego clearly doesn't need inflation. Their laughter eased the tension, and they spent the afternoon reimagining the event for the new location. When they finished, Blake walked her to the elevator. Thank you for handling this crisis so calmly, he said. Mom doesn't even need to know there was a problem. That's what you're paying me for: crisis management and discretion. As the elevator arrived, Blake said, 1 month until the party. And 3 days, Zara added, stepping inside. I'm counting, he replied as the doors closed. The new venue demanded numerous adjustments. Zara worked tirelessly, often sending updates to Blake late into the evening. One night, exhausted from a 12-hour planning session at the manor, she was surprised when her doorbell rang just after 9 p.m. Blake stood outside with 2 paper bags. You mentioned you hadn't eaten since breakfast. I brought reinforcements. How did you know where I live? Your business address is on your website, he explained. I took a chance you lived above the office. Was that presumptuous? It was, but the delicious aroma wafting from the bags overrode her objections. What did you bring? Thai from that place you mentioned liking. Pad see you, tom yum soup, spring rolls. He held up the bags hopefully. Zara hesitated only briefly before stepping aside. Come in, but this isn't a date, it's a working dinner. Absolutely, Blake agreed, though his satisfied smile suggested otherwise. They spread the food containers across Zara's small dining table, reviewing timeline details between bites. Blake seemed completely at ease in her modest apartment, so different from his world of penthouses and executive suites. You've thought of everything, he commented, reviewing her contingency plans for weather scenarios. Mom's going to be blown away. I hope so. She deserves something special. Zara gathered empty containers. She reminds me of my mother, sometimes so accomplished but humble about it. Your mom's a scientist too, a teacher. 4th grade for 30 years, different field, same dedication. Zara smiled fondly. She's flying in for a visit next week, actually. Her first trip to Boston. You should bring her to the manor, Blake suggested. Show her where you're working your magic. That's not typically allowed. I'll clear it with the owners. Consider it a professional site visit. 3 days later, Zara watched nervously as her mother, Zara Collins, explored the magnificent grounds of Gardner Manor. Blake had insisted on joining them, charming Zara within minutes of meeting her. This is where the string quartet will play, Zara explained, showing her mother the garden terrace. And inside we'll have displays about Margaret's scientific breakthroughs. It's absolutely beautiful, honey, Zara squeezed her daughter's hand. I'm so proud of what you've built. Blake, who had been giving them space, approached with 3 glasses of champagne. A toast to Vitalia Events and its brilliant founder. Zara accepted her glass with a knowing smile. Blake has been telling me about your exceptional work, Zara, and quite a few other complimentary things. Zara shot Blake a questioning look, which he answered with an innocent shrug. Mrs. Collins, would you mind if I borrowed your daughter for a moment? There's something in the rose garden I need her opinion on. Eleanor waved them off with twinkling eyes. In the secluded rose garden, Blake turned to Zara. Your mother is wonderful, she is. And apparently you two had quite a conversation while I was checking the ballroom acoustics. Blake looked slightly guilty. I might have mentioned I'm looking forward to the end of our professional relationship. Blake, Zara exclaimed, now she'll get ideas. Good ideas, I hope. He stepped closer. 3 more weeks, Zara, then I'm taking you to dinner properly. His proximity made her pulse quicken. You seem very confident I'll say yes. I'm hopeful, not confident, he corrected softly. There's a difference. For a breathless moment, Zara thought he might kiss her, professional boundaries notwithstanding. Instead, he gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and stepped back. We should rejoin your mother, he said, his voice slightly rough. Later, as Blake drove them back to the city, Eleanor whispered to Zara, that young man is smitten with you. Mom, it's complicated, he's my client. Life is always complicated, sweetheart. The good things usually are. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of final preparations. 2 days before the event, Zara supervised delivery of custom-made centerpieces at the manor when her phone buzzed with a text from Blake. Need your help with something important. Can you meet at this address at 7 p.m.? Wear something nice. The address led to an exclusive jeweler in downtown Boston. Confused, Zara entered the shop to find Blake waiting in a private viewing room. What's this about? She asked. Blake looked uncharacteristically nervous. I want to get Mom a retirement gift, something meaningful. I thought you might help me choose. The jeweler appeared with a tray of elegant pieces, diamond bracelets, sapphire earrings, pearl necklaces. These are all beautiful, Zara said, examining them carefully. What's your budget? Blake laughed. That's not a concern. What matters is finding something she'll love. Zara pointed to a platinum pendant with a delicate diamond constellation. Libra, her zodiac sign, right? Simple but significant. Perfect, Blake smiled. She'll love it. As the jeweler wrapped their selection, Blake asked, would you help me with one more thing? There's another piece I'm considering. Before Zara could respond, the jeweler returned with a different tray, this one containing engagement rings. Zara's breath caught. Blake, what is this? Research, he said smoothly. For the future, I value your opinion. Zara shook her head in disbelief, but found herself drawn to the rings nonetheless. These are all too ostentatious. If you're really asking hypothetically, I prefer something more subtle. She pointed to an elegant platinum band with a central oval diamond flanked by smaller stones. The jeweler noted her preference before discreetly withdrawing. Blake, this is inappropriate, Zara said once they were alone. We haven't even been on a proper date. True, he conceded. But I know what I want, Zara. I've known since the day we met. You can't possibly, not yet, he interrupted gently. But someday. I'm a patient man when the investment is worthwhile. The night of Margaret's retirement celebration arrived with perfect weather and flawless execution. Gardner Manor glowed with tasteful lighting, the string quartet played softly, and caterers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Zara, elegant in a midnight blue gown, supervised every detail while remaining inconspicuous. Margaret, resplendent in silver, moved through the crowd accepting congratulations from colleagues and friends. Blake stayed close to his mother, handsome in his tuxedo, occasionally catching Zara's eye across the room. The highlight came during dinner when a video presentation showcased Margaret's 4 decades of contributions to medical science, interspersed with personal messages from researchers around the world whose work she'd influenced. There wasn't a dry eye in the house when it concluded. Blake rose to deliver a toast, his deep voice commanding attention. My mother taught me that success means nothing if it doesn't improve lives. Her research has saved thousands, but her example has inspired countless more, including me. He raised his glass. To Dr. Margaret Richards, whose retirement marks the end of one remarkable chapter and the beginning of another. The crowd erupted in applause. As guests mingled over dessert, Blake found Zara in a quiet corner. "Everything is perfect," he said. "You've created exactly what she deserved." "I'm glad," Zara smiled. "She seems truly happy." "There's just one more surprise." Blake checked his watch. "In about 10 minutes. Surprise, there's nothing else on the timeline." Blake grinned mysteriously before returning to the crowd. 10 minutes later, the string quartet began playing a familiar melody. The waitstaff appeared with fresh champagne for everyone as Blake stepped to the microphone. "Friends and colleagues, thank you for celebrating my mother tonight. Before we conclude, I have one more announcement." He gestured toward Zara, who froze in confusion. This incredible event was created by Zara Collins of Vitalia Events. Her talent and dedication made this evening possible. Applause rippled through the room as Blake continued. "What Zara doesn't know is that while she was planning my mother's retirement party, I was planning something else entirely." Blake walked directly to Zara, taking her hand. Bewildered, she allowed him to lead her to the center of the room. "Zara Collins," Blake said, his voice carrying across the now silent ballroom, "for 3 months, I've respected our professional boundaries while falling more deeply in love with you every day." Gasps and delighted murmurs filled the room. Zara's eyes widened in shock. "Blake, what are you doing?" she whispered. Instead of answering, he dropped to one knee, producing a familiar platinum ring with an oval diamond, the one she'd selected at the jeweler's. "I promised to wait until after Mom's party to ask you to dinner," he said, eyes never leaving hers. "I never promised I wouldn't ask you for forever. Zara Collins, will you marry me?" The room held its collective breath. Margaret stepped forward, beaming with approval. In the corner, Zara spotted her own mother supposedly flying home yesterday, wiping away tears. "You planned this all along," Zara realized, her voice trembling. "The jewelry store, my mother still being here." "I planned everything except falling in love with you," Blake answered. "That happened the moment you walked into Mom's house and saw the person behind the success. You've never cared about my money or status, just the man I am. Please say you'll marry me." Despite her shock, Zara knew her answer with absolute certainty. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." Blake slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her as the room erupted in cheers. Margaret was the first to embrace them both. "I knew from the beginning," she confessed to Zara. "He called me the day after you first met and said he'd found the woman he was going to marry." "You were my co-conspirator all along?" Zara asked, laughing through tears. "My retirement was real," Margaret winked. "But it made an excellent excuse for my son to meet the right woman." 1 year later, Zara and Blake exchanged vows in the same rose garden where they'd almost shared their first kiss. Margaret, now enjoying retirement through extensive travel, stood proudly beside her son. Eleanor Collins dabbed tears as she watched her daughter begin a new chapter. At the reception, Blake raised his glass to the woman who had entered his life planning a party and became the center of his world. "To my wife, who thought she was organizing my mother's retirement when she was actually setting the stage for our life together." Zara leaned into her husband's embrace. "I should charge extra for that service," she teased. "Worth every penny," Blake replied, kissing her softly. "Best investment I've ever made." Their grand exit from the reception was not to an exotic honeymoon destination, but to the children's wing of Boston Medical Center, where they delivered toys purchased with what would have been their honeymoon fund. The newly established Richards Collins Foundation would focus on making medical treatments more accessible to underserved communities, combining Margaret's scientific legacy with Zara's passion for meaningful experiences. As they drove away from the hospital, Blake took Zara's hand. "Happy?" Looking at their intertwined fingers, her elegant ring catching the evening light, Zara smiled. "Beyond happy, though I still can't believe you planned our engagement while I was planning your mother's retirement. We make a good team," Blake said. "You focus on the perfect celebration, and I focus on the perfect future." "I think we're both focused on the same thing now," Zara replied, squeezing his hand as they drove toward home and all the celebrations yet to come.